Everyone, this is Casey, and this is the final part of what I do to bring animation from pencil into a program like Illustrator or Photoshop, and ultimately get it in a format that's ready for 2D video games. So the first part, we went over, using pencil to do all of the animation. The second part was a matter of copying the area, the content, and pasting it in Illustrator as shown here. And this third part is going to be, all right, so we have all of the rough animation here. Now I'm actually going to color it. So all right, so this is what I tend to do. Normally, before I actually even get here, I have some kind of like, I do a little color pass before I start applying the color to all of the frames. So I'm just going to lock some of these layers just so I don't move things around by mistake. So I'm just going to move these down a little bit. So, I just use Illustrator. It could, like I said, this could be Illustrator, Photoshop, doesn't really matter, to color the character. With this character, I'm using a lot of different radial blends just to give a sense of depth with certain things. I'm using some texture to give a little bit of just texture to the character. I'm using some metal gradients to help with turning these spikes into having that shiny element. So I do a whole like design pass on that to get there, and then once I have that design done, then I'm ready to basically apply it to all of the frames. So when it comes to this character specifically, there's a big area of his body. There's a big area of his body that doesn't have any animation that's moving. So what I do is actually, I think this one right here might even be the same frame as this. So I'm just going to move this up right to there. It seems like it almost perfectly, fits. So I'll just use that as a starting point. And what I want to do to continue to make sure that this animation, that all of the core areas do not shift between frames, is, as I explained earlier in part 2, I use these tiles, right, that represent the full space that each of these animations share, right? So I'm gotta take out the trash. So I'm just going to select this content right here actually, and I want to unlock this tile map layer during this part of the process. So I'm going to select it like that, and I have smart guides on, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to drag it and see how it locks to 128. I'm going to let go. But before I let go, if you look at the outline of this character, you see that the main body is it's practically aligned, but I mean, my pencil is me drawing that wasn't perfect, but this circle is perfect because it was created in Illustrator. So I just wanted to have exact alignment to the one next to me. So I'm just that 128 shows me that it's exactly 128 pixels away. So I'm just going to drop it there. Now with this frame, I'm just going to shift this color just a little bit, just so I know the difference between the different. I always like difference between the different background frames. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the animation that's going on in this one. So I'm just shifting these around, just so they they have the animation that frame is supposed to have. Now you'll notice, like with Smart Guide still on, when you do very small moves, sometimes it jumps between things. I don't like that, so that's when I have to shut this thing off. So I ultimately just copy each frame. Let me just turn it back on. 256, and it's always going to be a whole number whenever you drop it. It's like 128, 256, 384, 512, and so forth. So they're always going to be whole numbers, so that's the number you want to look for. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 frames here. I'm just going to turn off. Oh. Command U turns off Smart Guides. So I'm just going to shift this over. I'm going to shift this so it's the same thing and the same with this. And that's what I'm going to do for each of the things. So just to recap, the process is I'm going to make sure that this is once again turned on. I'm selecting this content and I'm just copying it to the next tile area, C384, and then I'm just adjusting the frames that are actually moving. And then in the end, what I get to is I'll come to having it look like this, which is all of the frames with their animation. And if I just hide the pencil animation layer, you'll see all the frames of animation without like any extra stuff. And if I hide the background layer, which represents the different tiles, you're going to see all of the frames just sitting there in space. And that's exactly what we want in the end. So at this point, your work is done. All you need to do from here is just save for web and devices. In most cases, you're always going to save out as PNG24 because, as I mentioned in the last part of the tutorial, it gives you full transparency, and that's exactly what you need. And that's what most game systems use nowadays too. And you just hit save and name it whatever you want. We're just going to name it that. It's going to replace it. And there you go. There's the whole process that I use. Now I, just mention, you see, I use Illustrator a lot for this for the part of the process. Some people may feel that, there's it may be faster just doing it, in Pixel, using a raster program like Photoshop or GIMP. But this is what I find very useful. So I have this, and I'm going to save for web, right? But image size, I want this character to be humongous. So I'm going to do a 4096. I'm going to apply this, and guess what? It's going to render it, and it's going to still look just as good. You see how clean that is? That's the power of vector. If you're doing this raster based, you won't have that. Now, at the same time, it does take longer, depending on what kind of design approach you're using, to create all of the coloring inside Illustrator. But it is flexible at the same time. So I mean, if you did want to very quickly change certain, a certain swatch to something else, let's say we want it blue, blue within this tile, right, or within that gradient. I would just copy this new gradient, and then I'd select all the different ones that use that, like this, and just click that, and it has the new color. So it does have some nice quick. There's even faster approaches too, but that's kind of like why I use Illustrator for my part of the my workflow when it comes to taking my animation and bringing it into making it ready for a game. So I hope this whole thing was useful to you, and if I come across other things that I'd like to share, other techniques that I use, I'll definitely be posting them.